Michael Marin, the Vice President of the Council. Rory is not here tonight and apologized for not being here. He's out of state for the bar exam. So we're going to start with item 1A on the agenda, the interview of Leslie Perini for reappointment to the trustees of the South Kingstown School Funds. Leslie?
Good evening.
Good evening. This is your opportunity. I appreciate your service so far, and I appreciate you being willing to be reappointed.
Sure. Yeah. I've been on the committee for quite some time now. I filled an open position when Charlie Paolino retired. I think I've been on 4 or 5 years, probably 4 of my own, and then maybe one of Charlie's years. There's been a lot of changes on that committee. We've had many finance directors over that time. Lots of vacancies in the position. It's a 5-member board, and I don't think we've ever had 5 members. So we're looking forward to some continuity with Brian in position now. I think we have a new member coming on, which will make us 4, so we're 1 away. And there's a lot on the table to discuss on our committee, so I look forward to the work this year. As Wakefield School is closed and some funds might be available, we're exploring lots of opportunities. If I have, I don't have any questions, but if you have questions for me, certainly.
I don't have any questions. I just want to say thank you for the work that you've put in so far. And
Sure.
I look forward to seeing you continue in that role.
We'll find something good to do for you guys. And you'll probably be seeing us again because we have to get some approvals, so.
We have had a brief discussion with Brian and with the solicitor about the operation of the committee. My guess is somewhere in the next few months, we'll have a workshop with the committee.
Sounds good. Okay.
Thank you
you so much.
Thank you so much.
And that's the only interview for this evening. Work session, Jim?
Thank you, Mr. Marin. This should be a fairly short agenda this evening. But nonetheless, I'll go over every item and then just ask if you have any questions. I'll go over them quickly. We have under the consent agenda, they're pretty self-explanatory. I went over it with the clerk this morning. They're all just straightforward applications, renewals, and for the licenses and the awarding of of an award to weatherproofing technology. So there's nothing unusual with those. If we go to 6 licenses, this is a renewal. It's a 19-hour beverage license to the Southern Rhode Island Chamber of Commerce for the Taste of Southern Rhode Island to be held at Clark Farms on Thursday, September 28th, 2023, 5 to 9, under a tent in the field where Clark Farms is. And the applicant is Mr. Joe Veely, the Executive Director of the Chamber of Commerce, and he's here this evening if the council has any questions. B, it's a request for a temporary mass gathering permit for the Sons of Liberty, called the PVD Food Truck Nights on Kingston Road, which is their address right over here in town. And that will be held on Thursday, July 27th, August 31st, and September 28th. C, another temporary mass gathering permit request by the Liberty Spirits, Sons of Liberty Spirits, for the Arts and Eats event, same location at where they are located, on Saturday, October 21st, 2023, 12 to 7. There's a public hearing this evening on CDBG grants, and it's pretty self-explanatory. We'll have Brian Wagner here from Planning, who will go over the request. But you can see that the public library has one for a roof replacement, $107,500. Senior Center, $250,000 for a parking lot redesign, which is really needed because that parking lot's pretty confusing as it is. Never mind if you're a senior trying to find your way through there. So it would be much safer by reconfiguring that parking lot into something more conducive to in and out rather than going around trees and grass and everything else. The Johnny Cake Center has requested $50,000, and the Welcome House Community Kitchen, $25,000. Public comments will be 8. New business. This is a award of a contract to Peterson's Oil for gasoline and diesel. We had a vendor, and there was just decided to switch to this vendor, which will give us a better deal for this gas and diesel. The finance director actually handles this type of contract, so he will be here this evening to discuss it. 9B is an MOU regarding natural gas purchased by under the State of Rhode Island's MPA, Master Price Agreement. And this will begin on December 1st, 2023, and go till July 14th, 2023. The facilities director will be here as well, if you have any questions on that one. C, these are tax abatements, totaling $22,403. If you have any questions on that, I have the paperwork with me. And D is I believe they're the tangible taxes, abate taxes in total amount of $7,585 as a tax abatement request. E is the resolution authorizing the submission by the town council for the following question to the Secretary of State on the November 7, 2023 local election ballot, which has to do with the construction and equipping of a new high school athletic facility and other school facilities for $125 million in bonds and notes. Once again, the finance director is here if you have any questions on the authorization of that money and some numbers in the first few years on the debt expense. 10, under the town manager's report, there's something that's been, there was a state law that was passed that affected the high tide, beach access. What the high tide has gone to 10 feet past the high tide mark. And it's created some confusion. It's created some challenges by law enforcement to enforce this. So the solicitor will give a brief summary of this new law and the parameters and where this law is going. It's being challenged. And Chief Moynihan is here from South Kingston Police to go over the challenges that our police department is facing as a shoreline community. 11, communications. Laura Lee Costello from the Executive Director of the South Kingston Authority is requesting a letter of support for the application of to Rhode Island Housing for grant funding and a loan for affordable housing. I believe she should be here tonight as well. 11B is a letter dated July 18, 2023 from Susan Walsh regarding her resignation from the Zoning Board of Review. 11C, with communications by the president of the Matunic Point Beach Club requesting the council to reconsider its decision to discontinue maintenance of private roads, convene a study commission, and stay the implementation of the town's decision. So why is this on the agenda, this specific one? We've received many of these communications, and many people have come up in public comment. And so the guideline we use is if someone's asking for something specific from the council to act on, then it goes before the council in a communication item. And this communication is regarding the request for the stay, a stay in the implementations of the town's decision to not maintain these private roads any longer. 12 is appointments, and that's it.
Any questions for Jim? All right, then, we'll start at 7:30. Recess until 7:30. I'll apologize in advance if this is clunky tonight. First timer. Good evening. We'll get started with the regular session. First is Pledge of Allegiance. Next is the Land Acknowledgement Statement. The town of South Kingstown pays homage to the indigenous people and land on which the town is now located. Let this acknowledgement serve as a reminder of our ongoing efforts to recognize, honor, reconcile, and partner with the Narragansett tribe whose land and water we benefit from today. Next on the agenda is the roll call. Susan?
Council Vice President Marin,
Here.
Councilwoman Bergner,
Here.
Councilwoman Alley,
Here.
Councilwoman Rose,
Here, I may have to excuse myself around 8:30 if I don't hear back from my son's ride.
and for the record, Council President McEntee is absent this evening.
Rory asked to extend his apologies. He's out of state for the bar. Next on the agenda is the approval of minutes of previous meetings. We have 3 sets: July 10 work session, July 10 regular session, and the closed executive session of July 10.
Motion to approve for A, B, and C.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes? Say aye.
Aye.
Any nay? That passes unanimously. Item number 5, consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda. Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? That carries unanimously. Item 6, licenses. Item A, a resolution granting a Class F 19-hour beverage license to Southern Rhode Island Chamber of Commerce for the Taste of Southern Rhode Island event to be held on Thursday, September 28, 2023, from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. under a tent in the field at 2984 Commodore Oliver Hazard Perry Highway in Wakefield. Application by Joe Veely, Executive Director of the Southern Rhode Island Chamber of Commerce. Joe? Welcome home.
Good evening, thank you. Thanks. This event, this will be our 11th year for this event. To give you just a brief background, about 34 or 35 local vendors in the hospitality industry, giving just what it says, a taste or a sampling of what they have to offer. Again, we've held it for 10 years before this, and it's been a great event for the community. So I'll entertain any questions if you have them.
So I always miss out on getting the tickets, so I never have actually attended because I always probably think I'm going to buy a ticket and then I wait and it sells out. So what advice do you have for someone like me who's looking to attend this year when these tickets go on sale?
We'll probably start a waiting list on Friday,
Can I get on the waiting list?
but you have tomorrow.
Okay,
So tickets are available for purchase right now?
Yes.
thank you,
They're
Joe.
almost gone.
They will sell out. And
I-
Yeah, we do limit the event because we find that it's a better event. We could easily sell 1,000 tickets to this.
I know.
So
I-
Deb, you can go on right now and purchase 2 and we'll be there.
I'm gonna
Are
do-
they available for purchase online?
Yes.
Okay.
Motion to approve 6A?
Second.
Any further discussion?
I love the,
It is a great event. I recommend it to everybody in town, if you can get the tickets in time. And thank you for limiting it, too, because it is a more enjoyable event.
better
You're
event.
not
Right. Thanks so much.
feeling like
Thank you,
you're in
Joe.
Disney. All right, all those in favor?
aye.
Any opposed? That carries unanimously. Item B, a
I'll ask that we take B and C together because they're both Sons of Liberty.
I agree.
That's fine. All right, items B and C under item 6, licenses for Sons of Liberty Spirits. Is anyone here?
So for B, it's our monthly food truck series, pretty low-key casual event. Last Thursday of the month, we have 5 to 6 food trucks from PVD Food Trucks. whichever month the event is in, we'll make sure that those trucks have the correct permits. No shuttle parking, the crowds don't really require that. We'll have a traffic detail. Our new tasting room manager is crowd manager certified, live music outside, drinks inside, good time.
Yeah. So it's a really great event. This one, sorry, Joe, I have been to this one. So this is a great event, and I really applaud all the creative work that goes into this to make it a fun community event.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Motion,
Motion
make a
to approve
motion.
items 6B and C.
Second.
discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Those carried unanimously. Item 7, the public
Right,
hearing,
That was for C too, right?
B and C, yes.
Perfect.
You're all
Thank you.
set.
You made it easy.
Motion to approve item 6C. We have to take a vote because Susan's looking at us, because I think I just said 6B. Oh,
But we
Oh.
did approve.
oh, okay. So do you
The
want to speak a
arts
little
and
bit about the
eats
arts and
event.
eats?
Sure, yeah. So it's kind of like a holiday bazaar, but it's outside. So we'll have the difference between this and the food truck events is that we'll have 25 local artisans outside in the same parking lot. Those are curated by a local company called Field of Artisans. And same thing, we'll make sure when we have those procured that they have their retail sales permits ready to go. And that is a larger event, so we'll have shuttle parking. We haven't secured the lot yet, but it will be somewhere. Yeah, same thing, pretty simple.
Awesome. Motion to approve item 6C.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Item 7, public hearing. A public hearing continued from July 10, 2023, relative to the filing of an application with Rhode Island Office of Housing and Community Development for funding consideration of municipal public services and facilities projects under the Federal Small Cities Community Development Block Grant Program and to obtain citizens' views on the same. The following activities are being considered for inclusion in that application: South Kingstown Public Library, roof replacement, South Kingstown Senior Center, parking lot redesign and reconstruction, Johnny Cake Center for Hope, food pantry, and Warm Welcome House Community Kitchen. Jim?
So, Mr. Brian Wagner from the Planning Department is here to go over these grant requests, and I'll just turn it right over to him.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian.
Good evening. As you remember, we were here on June 10th for this same matter. We continued it over because we had 2 late additions to the grant process that didn't get properly public noticed for the hearing. Nevertheless, I was able to make you aware of them at the time. Those are the applications for the Warm Welcome House and the Johnny Cake Center Food Pantry. So for tonight, I don't know if anybody is here to speak on this. I did ask Laurel Clark to be here because I think she may have something to, if you have questions about the library, because one of the things you have to do here tonight is rank these 1 through 4, and I gave you a couple of different recommendations where you might choose to go with that. I don't know if anybody from Johnny Cake Center is here to speak. Seeing none. Their application is pretty straightforward. They want money to buy food for the food pantry.
They did address us at the earlier meeting as well.
Warm was, the Welcome House was here. They addressed you.
Moji was here.
Yeah. But I don't know whether anybody was here from Johnny Cake Center. I don't believe so. I think it was just Welcome House last time. Welcome House is restarting their kitchen.
Yep.
That's what their $25,000 is for. And the last one, again, the parking lot at the senior center, again, pretty straightforward. They're going to expand it and redesign it to make it a little easier to navigate. So I don't know if anybody has any additional questions for me. Yes.
So I do. So you're seeking federal grant money to do these projects, or we are seeking?
Correct. The way CDBG works is they dole out money to the states, and then the states pass it through to local municipalities. Individual entities cannot apply for the money. We have to apply for it on their behalf.
So it sounds to me like it's slightly different than a typical grant where we might have had to provide a match. We don't have to provide a match for these funds?
There's no match requirement on these funds, no.
Great.
Sometimes they do ask in the grant applications whether or not you have any other funds or contributors to the projects. I think they do like to see contributions. But then again, some of these projects can get much larger than the ones that you're looking at here, and I think that's typical in those kinds of projects.
This might be a question for Jim. With regard to the senior center parking lot, is that something that we've been, is part of our capital improvement plan, that we're now just sort of shifting to that?
So we're just starting to shift to that priority, but I will tell you this, there's one more part of this CDBG grant. Each town is eligible up to $500,000 total. So just to give you an idea of, ranking, of course, the Johnny Cake Center and the Welcome House are critical to, the needs of the town. But at some point, we're going to have to expend $250,000, the town, to that's a public safety issue, the senior center. The way it was described to me, we've all pulled in there, right? You have to go, it's like a serpentine cost to get in there. It was poorly designed with the end users, seniors. And they have had some near misses, some minor accidents, but that to me is a priority, that has to be redesigned for ingress and egress capabilities by seniors. It's critically important. The roof, the library. We're hoping to get a lot of money from the feds to redesign the upstairs for underserved people, elderly people, people that need different resources than just people going in for books and computers and everything else. So we need that roof does leak. The basement has flooded. Do we have capital money that we're trying? Yes, but not enough to do it. So, so what I would say is, of course, I recognize the Johnny Cake Center, and I recognize the Welcome House. If we were successful in getting those two larger grants, that would free up other money that could go to them if the town council so chooses to.
So that was my question. Would we, since we've already begun to allocate for these other projects, we could shift and speed up other projects? But you're also saying that we could potentially...
We could potentially get all four of them.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is if you ask for the public safety one for the parking lot's big, the library's critical too. So I know they're tough to rank, but if we got the larger ones, that frees up money. That's the point I was trying to make.
So you're saying we need to present in some sort of order what we would prioritize. If the state could only give us one grant, we might say we want to do the senior center parking lot. So that would be one. Two could be we need the library because it's a community resource and we have other projects planned. And then the other social service grants are important and valuable and needed, but they could potentially be ranked 3 and 4.
Yes, I think Mr. Wagner brought that up in his conversation. But once again, let's look at the impact on the number of people that we serve, right? So the senior center has about 5,000 seniors a year, using that facility. The library has, hundreds and hundreds a week, especially in the community that needs it the most. So these are. So I answered your question. So if you do have to rank them as best.
Yep. Okay.
Do we need to do that tonight, or?
We're on a deadline, aren't we?
Yes. The grant has to be filed by Thursday, so I need
Okay.
a vote to approve and a ranked order tonight.
Okay. So
I'm prepared to.
I
we
just
need
want
to
to
hear
clarify
from the
one
public.
thing.
It's a public hearing, so.
Yeah.
I just want to clarify one thing that I said. This is for the Kingston Library, whereas the renovation I talked about was for the Peacedale Library, that we're getting money there. But the Kingston Library, I toured the place. It's beautiful, it's historic. Right away when I went in, they said the roof. So I just want to differentiate between the two.
Yeah, and I'd just like to add to what the manager said. In addition to the activities and resources that you find in a normal library, the Kingston Library is also a key historic structure within our historic district, and water penetration is something that's a huge issue to deal with in historic structures, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any members of the public that would like to address the public hearing on these community block development grants? I don't want to shut off debate. It looked like somebody was wondering whether they wanted to speak. Okay.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second?
All those in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Any nay? That passes unanimously. Now we need to have a discussion and a vote and priority order.
So I think the way that they are listed on the document works for me. I think the Kingston Library is, like we've just heard, it's in the historic district. It's definitely a priority. We heard in the previous term how important the library is to the community when the parking spaces were in jeopardy. So I think that we have made a case that contributes to the community, and so I'd like to support the roof, and likewise the senior center. We've done a lot of work, and we know the good work that happens at the senior center, not just for South Kingstown seniors, but other Washington County seniors, namely Narragansett, use it. So I think that order makes sense. And then I think Johnny Cake and Warm are just absolutely important in our community, but there may be other opportunities that if it doesn't get prioritized and funded, that we can look at other ways.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I could look at switching the first two if that made a difference, but I do like the way it's presented here. I'm happy to go that route.
I think it makes sense to rank them in the order of, largest to smallest in some regards, because we are eligible for up to 500,000. And I think that both 1 and 2, I mean, you could go either way for ranking them first or second, but just because we'd rather get more money than less money, I would put the senior parking center, the parking lot first, and the library possibly second. And then the others I would leave as they are, but just for that strictly numerical order. But I would go, I'm fine really with either way, but I would make an argument that switching it around might be somewhat better.
Just to chime in with my own thoughts, I agree with Deb and Jess that the order that they're presented, I think makes the most sense, partly because roof replacement is so essential for safety in the building, and if we don't do it and get it right, it's going to cause a lot of other problems. And with respect to the mention of the building's historical significance, at one time, that was a temporary Capitol building for the state of Rhode Island. So it's important to the town and the community to make sure that it's preserved. The redesign and reconstruction of the parking lot, I agree, is important. I'm not sure if it was badly designed in the origin or if it's just a victim of its own success, because that place is constantly busy. And I think it's the traffic, it gets so much use. I think that's part of the problem with the parking. So I would agree to prioritize them in the order they're presented here on the agenda. We want to have a motion?
Go ahead, Deb.
Patty, are you okay if we go the other way?
Yeah, I mean, I love that library, and there's so many wonderful historical documents. I certainly don't want to see anything happen to them, so yeah.
Mhm. So, motion to approve 7A and prioritize the grants requests as presented in the agenda.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That carries unanimously. Thank you, Brian. Next is item 8, public comment. You can address any subject you want. We do have the clock on the wall. Please keep that in mind. Hopefully, people prepare their thoughts before they come up, or if there's a group, a single spokesperson. Please state your name.
Hello. Got to state your name.
So,
We know who you are, but you need to state
Oh.
your name for the community.
is that better?
Yes, but you have to say your name.
Oh, Norma Rolke.
Yep.
So this time I wanted to talk about unfairness, because that keeps coming up as an issue. And I was reading the complaint, I guess, from the Broad Hill Association, in which they talk about the unfairness because of the hundreds of thousands of dollars that are spent on roads, and the fact that we, on private roads, are getting a free ride. So I wanted to dispute that, because the maintenance of the roads is part of the town budget, and private and public roads are taxed the same, I found out. And so we are also taxed, and we also pay for the maintenance of the roads. But our roads are not treated in the same way as public roads are. Our roads are mostly narrow. 2 cars can not get by going this way and this way. We have to move over. They are unpaved. They are sand and gravel. They are at sea level, which is probably why they remain sand and gravel. They are neighborhood residential roads, not meant for commercial traffic. There are no signs saying anything. Some of these roads, like mine, is off Matunic Schoolhouse Road, which is a road that is frequented by bike riders, walkers, runners, babies in strollers. And these people often turn onto our roads because we have water, because our houses are cute. We have geese, we have swans and ducks, and people like to look at that on their way. There is no way out of these roads except back onto Matunic Schoolhouse Road. We do get some minimal maintenance by the town. They plow once after a snowstorm. Usually it has to be more than 3 or 4 inches. There is no sand, no salt, no return if the road freezes, no repair for potholes, no removal of fallen trees. In the spring, the roads are graded once. That is it. The other thing I wanted to say is Mr. Manny said the last time that there were no new private roads added for more than 35 years. I believe that's what you said.
That's correct. We asked the DPW director, who's been an employee here for about 35 years, and I got that statement from him.
So Broad Hill Association, which is a private association, ours is not a private association. Our home, the ownership of our home begins at the street. People in private associations own the street. But since they were built after 2000, that is less than 35 years ago, our roads were built around 1948, and they've been maintained in the way that they have for all these years. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I'm Mario Brissetti, and I'd like to make sure the council knows about the problem we're having in our town with beech tree leaf disease. I happen to live on Beech Tree Place, and perhaps 50% of the trees in my neighborhood are dying from this disease. According to a recent article in the Providence Journal, beech trees, both the European or the copper type and the American beech trees, are all being destroyed by a microscopic nematode worm, and that beech trees represent about 10% of our total forest. Furthermore, some of these beech trees are significant landmarks, particularly the one on Oakwoods Drive that had to be cut down recently. According to Heather Faubert, who was quoted in the newspaper article and is director of URI's Plant Protection Clinic, infected trees have about 6 to 10 years to live before they die, and every beech tree in Rhode Island is now infected. Basically, these worms destroy the leaves, and the tree reproduces the leaves, and then it gets destroyed. So over time, the tree just loses its energy and dies, but it takes a while. So I'm here to bring awareness to the problem to the council, to really anyone who is listening. Hopefully, something will change in the next few years, but this disease has been around for at least 10 years from Ohio, and it hasn't changed, and they don't really understand or have any cure for it right now that seems to really work. And so we're going to have a lot of dead trees in our town to deal with in the future. My ask to the council is that you become knowledgeable about the problem, and to that effect, I'd like to invite you all and anyone interested to a talk Heather is giving about the disease and also the ash tree disease, which is common here, at the South Kingstown Peacedale Library on Monday, the 31st at 6:30 p.m. Thanks for giving me the opportunity and time to speak.
Thank you.
So you have a couple minutes, but I just wanted to say that we did talk about this. You sent a letter. Was it you who sent the letter? I was just looking. Yeah, we did talk about it at the previous meeting a couple months ago about what options and what we could do. And so it was my understanding that the trees are on private land, so it's hard. We can't.
No, I understand.
So I used to live in the Oak, so I totally, like, you know, when you talk about the pretty beech trees at the bottom, they're beautiful. So it's hard because, you know, we don't have the ability to help.
No, I get that. You know, one thing I worry about is we have some common land,
Yeah.
some big trees, and maybe they're going to need to come down.
Mm-hmm.
There are rules about what you can and cannot do on common land. You know? So maybe something like that needs to be looked at, because you really can't permit those trees to fall, because they'd fall into the oaks, for instance, and destroy houses.
Right,
So you know, this problem isn't today.
right,
It's going to take years,
yeah.
but at some point it's got to be dealt with, and hopefully the council and the town will come up with, I don't know. I don't really know, but
Yeah.
one thing I do know is let's at least learn about it and try and figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
Could you repeat the details of that meeting again? It's Monday, the 31st, which is a week from tonight, right? At
6:30 p.m.
At the Peacedale Library.
South Kingstown Library, and the woman's name is Heather Faubert, and she is
How do you spell her? I'm going to just try to put it on.
Faubert.
Okay.
I actually have a copy of the library flyer that
Okay.
one I can,
Oh, yeah.
We can,
pass up, which has all the details for you guys. Okay?
Put it on social media.
yeah.
Have you had any contact with the DEM Division of Forestry?
No.
I'm just wondering if they're dealing with it, because it's clearly not a problem that the town of South Kingstown is going to be able to.
It's an entire Rhode Island problem. That's
Exactly.
right, yeah. But, you know, sometimes in order to get something to happen, people first have to know about it, and then they have to get, you know, excited about it. It's going to be a lot of trees, and they're going to come down, and a lot of those trees are really beautiful trees, especially those copper beeches. And it's the entire state. You're right, you know. But the more knowledge there is, the better. That's why I'm speaking tonight.
Thank you.
So there is an article in Science Magazine where Heather is quoted as saying it was confined to a small area in 2020, And then the year that this article comes out in 2021, it's everywhere.
It's everywhere, yeah.
So in 1 year, it went from,
Yeah. Nobody knows how it spreads. You know, how does that happen, you know? Nobody knows. Anyway, my time's up.
thank you for caring and bringing this to everyone's attention. I appreciate it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. My name is Jeffrey Booley. I live on Woodsia Trail, part of Warnings Ponds Association, Warden Pond Shores, with 4 other homeowners from our neighborhood to kind of piggyback on the private road issue and the maintenance. I actually have a excerpt from our town newspaper from 1985, because apparently this was discussed in the past. And it says that the roads that were included with maintenance that are private roads predate subdivision control, which began in 1957. So we didn't have the infrastructure to actually build those roads to the standards that are held today. And at this point, there's no way that we could even do it based on the land being close to Warren's Pond, all of that. And at that ruling, they determined that those continued plowing services to be provided. I also have our plat information, and 2 plats of our, it's like 35 plats in our neighborhood, are actually owned by the town. So the argument is the roads in front of those plats, who's responsible to plow and maintain those? Like, God forbid there's an emergency event after a storm and they can't pass through, who would maintain those roads? We also have a right-of-way, which is designated to utility vehicles for storms and downs. So who's responsible to maintain that? I think it was made to National Grid back in the 50s, but is that them? What if they don't have access to that, and how do we get there? You know what I mean? So I know that it's being discussed, Section 11 specifically at Matunic, and it was already discussed today, but I think it is a much further issue and needs to be looked forward, and I'm actually surprised how quickly it was passed without discussion to the public. I think that's it.
So we did have a lot, we have talked about this a lot, just to let you know that when we did this back in the winter, I feel like it was November, but it's sort of a blur. We did talk about it, and that we changed the policy and the practice, but gave people time, because we knew we were talking about it in a time where many people might not be here. They might be this might be their summer residence. So we did delay implementation. I don't know, have you been following?
I've been trying to, but I honestly have a tough time navigating and reading the minutes and things like that online.
Okay.
So I was brought to attention by our president of our association, who's not here today, and then I tried to do some further digging myself.
So last meeting, I believe we talked about it again, and we talked about, and I'm going to give out some numbers. I think there's 80 miles of private roads, and we were maintaining and taking care of 13 miles of that. So that is it's clear that we didn't do it for everybody, and the challenge would be, we always ask, like, what's the solution? The solution, you know, many people would be to go back to what it was, because that's benefits them, but we have other people who are not getting that benefit who want it. So I think all of us are open to a solution, but there really isn't one that doesn't then change the financing of how do we spend extra, and I think it's about an extra $1 million to do that, and for everybody.
Yeah, I missed the initial conversation on why it was taken away from that road to begin with.
Because there's another homeowners association who's like, we see the town plow use our road to plow a private road. Can you also plow our road? They're spending thousands, and they're like, can we have what they have? And then when we looked at the discrepancy between the roads and who's getting plowed and graded and who isn't, that's kind of, if there was a good solution, we would be open to it. We don't see that there is one that would be fair without then increasing.
As I understand that, and I know that I talked to Public Works, and they were like, there's 70-something private roads that were being plowed, and there's over 300, so they'd have to extend it to everyone. But my biggest concern with our specific neighborhood is the right-of-way and the town-owned land that's in our neighborhood. Who's responsible for that?
So that's what the people who were here 2 weeks ago said, exactly that. So there's DEM, I think it's Sandsprite, who DEM owns a piece and they actually go down to the pond and test, and they do, it's the same argument. And if you go back and watch the meeting minutes at the end, the legal solicitor, Amy Goins, talks about that we could actually, even though we've always done it, sort of, it's called, what is it called? Stoppables? It's not stoppables. Estoppel. And so even though we've always done something, if we stop doing it, we're not liable.
Okay.
So go back and see, and then you can always come back and we've had this conversation almost every meeting.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
There was also a memo from the solicitor that was put into the record in terms of the legal interpretation about the private roads. You might want to take a look at that. Next.
I'm going to follow up on the roads. Arthur Palmer, 28 Teal Drive. 3 or 4 comments. So I started this investigation the day I got the postcard. So I first started with the GSI maps, and I go to Teal Road and click on it, and what highlights is town of South Kingstown with an outline on Teal, Tern, Mallard, Marine, Sandsprite, Petrel. So I said, okay, good. Well, then the town owns our roads. And then, so I let that sit. I said, okay, well, let's investigate the complaint. So I investigated the complaint. And to me, it's unfounded because they are under a compound ordinance, which states in your subdivision land development regulations, it says, streets and drainage improvements within the parcel to be developed as a residential compound shall be privately owned and maintained in common by the residents of the residential compound. So they've chosen to go this route so they can get certain requirements waived to have this big place. And then it goes on to say, the covenant by the owners of the parcel, binding on the successors and assignees, that the town of South Kingstown shall not be asked or required to accept or maintain the private streets within the parcel that is that does not meet the engineering and design requirements that the town accept the streets. So to me, I drove down there, there's speed bumps, there's big private signs, and I don't think speed bumps are part of the engineer to accept the road. So then I looked at his presentation by the association, and they're complaining that the plows come down Broadway Hill Way with the plows up so they can plow Sand Plains Road. So I Googled them, found out where those roads are, and then I found out that Walden Pond Road will get to Sand Plains Road. So in my opinion, DPW should have said, yes, I'm sorry, we are trespassing on private roads, and we will now access Sand Plains Road through Walden Pond. And that should have been the end of it. But now you're stuck with all this stuff. And then the only thing I have left is that the fact that when I listed all those names as all highlighted on the GSS map, so I said, all right, well, let me try to, I mean, it even has a lot and plot number. So then I said, okay, well, let me go to the assessor's database and check out what these things are. And, I couldn't find an individual one for all the individual roads. I did find the one for Teal. But it's very, other towns that I know, when they do their databases like that, if it's just land, it usually says 0 and then the road name. So you know it's land. In this case, I couldn't find all of them. None of them have a 0. They just say the road name. So I had a very tough time trying to mesh this stuff together. So I don't know if the GSA one, whatever acronym is, Thank you. The GIS map is the accurate one, or do we figure out how these assessor things take place? I just couldn't, that's kind of where I got stuck. But in my opinion, this shouldn't even have been an issue. Thank you.
Next.
My name is, excuse me, my name is Dan Raboyne. I live on Sabatia Trail in Warden Pond. And now that we're not getting any kind of service on the roads, that means more money out of our pockets, so more or less our tax, that makes our tax go up because we got to pay out of pocket. So how come, you know, what you take the tax money from us, but we don't pay, we don't get water, we have wells, we have septic. I don't have kids in school. I never had kids in school. I understand the whole thing of that. I understand about the police and the fire department and all that stuff. But now you're talking how many thousands out of pocket I got to do to plow and to maintain this road. And we got seniors on that road, so that means I'm liable, right? If something happens, if the senior has to have an ambulance or something, is that correct? So what happens then? If we can't get somebody to come in and plow at the right time, and he has an issue. That's one thing I'm thinking about. I mean, you don't mind taking the tax money, but what am I getting? That's something to think about. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Rochelle Gunning. I also live in Warden Pond Shores, in Warden Pond. And as far as I know, the town has been plowing our road for 50-plus years. You would think there would be some kind of that we'd be grandfather claused in. I think this whole thing came to light, this is what I hear, I don't know if it's true, but that somebody complained in a new development somewhere that some private roads got service and others didn't. But, you know, I don't think any of us that live there now would have bought our properties there if we weren't told that the town takes care of the plowing. We never were told we were going to have to pay for any of that. I mean, I've been there 30 years now. I don't think any of us really have thousands of dollars that we can all chip in to do this, you know, going forward. What are we going to do? Unless our taxes are reduced by that much so that we can put it towards that. Because it's true, I feel like Dan does, well, what are our taxes going for? I don't have kids in school either, but that's besides the point. But what are we getting for our taxes if we can't even get plowed? You know, I feel like new developments that are private, where if someone's going to buy a property there, they know ahead of time, they're told, they know that it's going to cost them to pay for their plowing or whatever. But that wasn't the case for any of us and where we live. We've been told, you know, our realtor said, oh, you know, the roads get plowed. All of a sudden, this is getting dropped on us. I don't think any of us are going to be able to afford it. Are we all going to have to move now? I don't know. I just don't think it's right. It's been 50-plus years that the town's been taking care of this. You can't just stop doing it. You know, how can you take on that responsibility and then just decide not going to do it? Like I say, the new developments that people buy into, they know up front that they'll have to pay extra for that. But That wasn't the case for any of us. We were all told the town plows. So, anyway.
So I do just want to make a note, because I know we have some new faces here, and I want to say that we hear you. I don't know about you, Patty, but we all live on private roads, and we are affected by this as well. So, I mean, I don't want you to think that we're making a decision and we don't feel for you. That this does affect us personally. So we have to look at the big picture.
Well, okay.
So,
Okay, but maybe all of us that are affected by this on private roads, who now will have to all chip in and buy their own private contractor to do it, should have that reduction in our taxes.
it doesn't, when you live in a community, it doesn't work like that. I don't use the senior center. I'm not going to ask for a reduction in my taxes. My friends who have children in private schools are not going to ask for a reduction because they have to pay for their kids to go to a different school. They choose to go to a different school. This is a community, and part of community is everybody chipping in to help everybody else. It's the society that we live in today that, I mean, I don't drive on some of the roads, but I'm not going to pay for half of them.
Well, sure. The taxes I pay, I'm certainly chipping in for
I don't know the last time
a
I've
lot of things
been, you
that
know,
I'm not benefiting from. Like, I've never had a child in school,
But we
and I'll
can't-
never benefit
we
from that,
cannot-
but I
that's-
pay. But
But
this
society
is-
doesn't work in a way such that we can break down tax rates based on what people choose to use and don't choose to use. I've never utilized
Yeah, but this is
EMS.
big. This is big. This is going to affect us so badly.
It will,
I mean,
and it will affect us as well. We understand. I think that's what my point is. I just want to let you know that we understand. It's going to affect me. It's going to affect.
Well, I don't
So
think
the other
you
people
should
sitting here,
stop
and-
plowing
so
our roads. I don't think
So
it's
we-
right
we-
to just
we-
stop after so many years. After so many years, decades and decades, so.
Right. I hear you. I hear you.
I need to interrupt. If we're going to really get into a conversation, which is fine, you just got to add it to the agenda.
Yes, sir.
Sure.
I'm Christopher Swartz. I live on Sabbatia Trail. I received a postcard regarding the roads in June. So if there was discussion about the roads prior to June, we weren't included. That's point one. Point two is, I agree with Rochelle. I've been paying and living on that road for 35 years. I wouldn't have bought the house had I known the town that didn't maintain the road. So if I try to sell the house now, who would buy it? Who wants to pay for to have the road done? So you've basically taken away value of my home by making this decision. Next, I really don't understand the math. I've lived in this town for 35 years. I've driven the roads for 35 years. Has anyone done an analysis on the increase in the area of roads versus the increase in tax base? The population of this town has probably doubled in the time I've lived here. Yet, the total area of paved or unpaved private and public roads has probably not changed to that proportion. So where does the money go? We still have a high school that's 1950 vintage. And, I pay taxes, and to counter Jessica's point, you stated that we all live in a community. I pay my school taxes. I pay my property taxes. I don't get water from the town. I don't get sewage from the town. Now you're telling me I can't have my road maintained and paved, or rather plowed, yet I'm still paying taxes. So if you say that, oh, well, I don't use the senior center, but I still pay willingly, okay, then why are you taking away my road service then? How is that any different? I have roads, you have roads, we have roads. The town has the ability and the equipment to manage those roads. Those roads have been around for years and years and years. They haven't changed. The town is well-suited to be able to maintain them. Why would you selectively take away my roads, right, just because they're private? It's the same point as you just stated. I don't have kids in school, but I pay taxes to the, for kids that go to school, right? So how can you selectively take away the service that you already provided? It doesn't make sense. So I would like to see an analysis done that shows, okay, here's what the area looked like in 1950, 1960, in terms of total square footage of roads and the cost to maintain those roads versus the size of the tax base and the taxpayers in this town. I'm sure there's a disproportion there because I know for sure all of the same roads we see here were here when I moved in. And the town has increased in population by, probably 2x. So that's twice the tax base for approximately the same size area. So how could we not afford to pay to plow the roads? The math doesn't work. So before you take away our road service, why can't you do an analysis and prove? And then furthermore, why can't you offer us the service to do it? Charge us more on our taxes. I'll pay more taxes because it's probably cheaper for the town to do it than it is for me to hire someone to do it. Because then the same people who are not using school, or it's going to be the same type of deal, right? I'm paying money, and the rest of the town can chip in. The same as they do for the senior center, and the same as they do for the high school, and all the other community things that we pay for. You can't differentiate between a private and a public road and then say we're a community. That's unacceptable. How can you make that case? It doesn't work. That's my position. So please, I would like to see the analysis before before a rash decision is made, because certainly, you're paying $350,000 for a roof for a library, which I don't use, but I'm paying for it, and $250,000 for a parking lot in the senior center, which I don't use, but I'm paying for it.
Sir, your time has expired. If you can wrap up, please.
Well, I'm done. So can we expect at least to be put on the minutes that some analysis will be done?
I do believe that we did do analysis, so I know when I was quoting they did look at which private roads were being maintained and which ones were not. I did speak about it. Was I accurate, Jim? Can we add this to the agenda just for
Please.
5 minutes? Motion to add this to the agenda.
Please add to the agenda, because it's very important.
Second.
Thank you.
Sorry. They just have all these questions, and I feel like
I agree. My only point in responding the first time was to say that I got the first.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
So can I ask
All
a
those
question?
opposed?
So are we adding it now, or are we going to let public comment continue on?
I know it's coming up under communications for sure, but
Okay.
since we seem to be going
Okay.
back and forth now.
So he sat down, but, so we did do an analysis and looked at what roads were being maintained, which roads were not being maintained. We hear you. Obviously, if you have benefited from this service, you want it to continue. The question we keep asking, I keep asking, is what are we going to do for the other 60 miles of private roads where people are contracting and paying for that maintenance? Are you now saying, we want to chip in as a community and pay for everybody? Is that the solution?
My position is it should be treated the same way as you do with students.
So
There's tons of students that people pay for.
He needs to come up to.
you need to come back. So sorry. Yeah, well, and we have heard people say that, but the government isn't a menu. Like, you can't choose what you want to have paid for or not, because part of the cost is lowered when we all contribute to the cost. If we really only let people who are paying for the kids, who attend our schools, you know.
But sorry, you missed my point then completely. I'm already paying for the roads, and I pay for kids to go to school, and I pay for water taxes, which I don't get. I pay to maintain the sewers in this town, which I don't have access to. Okay, the list goes on and on. So how is it any different? You are differentiating by taking away maintenance of private roads.
Sir.
And I'm still paying for roads that are public ones.
Sir.
Well, we're all paying for the community roads. So like, we all pay for,
It's no different. You're differentiating the services that you provide. Everyone pays taxes, and we're not getting the service. You can't take away the service. You're segregating private roads versus public ones. Police cars still have to go down the private road. How will it do it? How can I guarantee that my association can keep that road clear so that law enforcement can be maintained?
do you have an
That fire
association?
services can be-
Do you have an association?
We do.
Okay, so we've heard from lots of people who live all over. There are people who don't even have associations. I think some of them are here. We've heard from them. And so there's a lot of struggles from this. We're not saying that there aren't challenges that present, but the other solution, your position seems to be, we want what we've had all this time. But what my question to you is, what do we do for the other people who are not getting that?
It's a matter of equity.
Yeah.
It's
there
a
are
matter of
roads-
treating people fairly throughout the community. We cannot just pick and choose these 13 miles of roads and leave the other 67.
And we pay for them.
Well, then that's another whole issue. Then-
Everyone should have, when I pay taxes, it should cover, and when everyone pays,
Like an all,
it should cover.
that's another whole issue, though.
That's what it should be. You can't take away services from other people unless you reduce the price that they pay for their taxes. How can you call it a community thing, like the senior center?
I live on a private road, and we have an association, and we pitch in
I
to
do.
cover the cost.
I do not have an association. I live on a private road. I got the same postcard that you did. I don't have anybody helping me pay for that. I'm taking care of that.
Okay. Good.
This
Well,
is-
that's
So
very good for you.
I mean,
It's a change. It's different.
But if you're
it's
going to-
just the fair thing. There's not really any way to do it fairly. If we just give you services, we
How
can't.
is it any different than when you educate your children in this town?
Well, that's a,
Tens of thousands of people have kids, and other thousands don't.
right.
And yet they're still paying.
But somebody,
How is it any different? It's not any different. Every road in this town should be maintained by the town, whether it's private or otherwise.
so
And
you're,
if you have to raise the taxes to do so,
Okay.
you can raise them to a level that's more easily managed than if we have to hire a private contractor. If I have to hire a private contractor, it will cost us $1,400 to $1,500 every time it snows.
so that, I think,
We have enough trouble raising our dues for the,
I know.
all right? So that I'm certain the town can do it more efficiently. They've already got the equipment. The increase in taxes that I would have to pay to cover every road in this town is probably insignificant.
Well, I guess, going forward, when we go back to budget season, you can argue that you would want to increase the road maintenance line item, because that, at
Well,
this,
how much would it save? How much are you saving versus how much would you have to charge me? Do you
I
have
don't
that
think it's,
information?
I actually don't think we're saving anything. I actually think we would be responsible for adding, because the other 60 miles of roads want what you have gotten for many years at no cost. So they want what you have.
So if you had to raise the taxes to cover that that
63 miles of road.
right, if you had to raise the taxes so that every person in the town paid the same as we pay for all the other services in the town, which we don't get, how much would you have to increase the taxes for, per individual?
I can't remember that.
It's probably a lot cheaper than if I have to hire a contractor to come and plow me out at it whenever he's available.
There are a number of other people who I believe want to speak.
Yeah.
We
You
need
asked me
move
to come
on.
back up.
Yeah, no, we
so-
did, we did.
You
So-
did. You
well,
did do that, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I came back
much
up.
for your, for your
Right.
feedback. I mean, I think we definitely have heard you and understand your position, and I think what Deb says is correct. If we want to consider increasing the tax rate, then that's what we would need to do to
Right.
be able to provide the services.
But please, if you could just provide what I originally asked for, the analysis, okay? How much has the tax base increased versus how much has the area of roads increased? Because that should tell us something very clear. If the tax base has doubled and the size of the road area is relatively the same, something's amiss,
Thank you.
okay?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Robert Jensen, Sandpiper Drive. I think the solution is easy, and I think the majority of the people in this room roll it back where it was. Why would you want to open up a hornet's nest like this? You've been providing a service for over 70 years. One gentleman earlier brought up how when his development was done, there was no zoning at the time. So things were done between the building officials and the people building. And now, after all these
Susan?
years,
Excuse me.
why come in and do this, and all of a sudden, it's on the burden of these taxpayers? And it's not right. The examples that they're giving make total sense. Why would this council want to be the one to come in and cause all this division now in the town? Why do that? I don't understand it. It makes no sense. The solicitor or assistant solicitor at last time's meeting, to me, was taunting the residents in this room when she kept telling to the council, well, it's going to cost them a lot of money. They're going to have to do discovery. They're going to have to pay attorneys. They're going to have to do every street individually. Now, if that isn't taunting someone, tell me what it is. Now, the flip side of that, the solicitor's office works for a town manager, works for the council, works for the town. But these taxpayers pay those bills. So that's what I say with their taunting. So now, if we have to go the legal route, and if this council wants to stand this and do what it's doing, I think that's what's going to end up happening. Now, that's going to cost the town an awful lot of money. But to disregard what's been happening for all these years and just brush it off, well, it's not fair. Well, do what you've been doing for the past 35 years. If a street wanted to get in there to have it plowed and the once grading, you said no, it couldn't happen. Keep it the way it is. And if those people want to challenge it, let them come forward. But don't take it out on people who have been living here all these years.
If I may, that's actually part of the problem. Because if we go back and say for the 13 of the 74 miles that have received the services over decades, continue to get it, and we're going to ignore the other 63 residents of 63 miles on private roads, then it's going to be them that sues the town. It's one or the other.
But this council did this, and why? Why would you come in and do this without notifying? You didn't notify us. You sent us a little notice in June. You could have done the same thing in January. I could have got that same card saying someone came in with these remarks, and now all of a sudden, here's what we're going to do. You should come into this. No, we got notified after the fact. And then to say here, oh no, it was public. It wasn't. This was not out there for everyone to see. Now we have over at St. Romuald's Church, they're seeing the impact this is going to have. They have church services there. Their church is located on Atlantic, but their parking lot is on Community Drive. Now, what are they going to do? And I don't want to sound redundant, but I was here 4 meetings ago, maybe 3,
and everyone was patting each other on the back. We had just hired a grants writer, and all these great things were going to happen in the town. The 300-year anniversary, and then now to be doing this, it makes no sense. And I think this council realized that at the time, and they even said some of the remarks were, we're going to look at this. We didn't see this part of it. That following meeting, I don't know what happened, and all of a sudden, it was no. I think it had something to do with the solicitor's office for the way that person acted at that last meeting. And I approached her after the meeting, and I told her I thought it was inappropriate for her remarks. And that's why I wanted it on the record now, because I do not think it was an appropriate thing for a solicitor to be saying about the people who are actually paying the bill. And now if we challenge this, the solicitor's office, they're going to do great, because now they're going to come in and defend the town. So we're going to continue paying our taxes, and we're also going to be paying private attorneys to do something that should have never happened. And again, say it. Why would the council want to open up a hornet's nest like this? It makes no sense. Thank you.
So there are some, I can't think of the right word, but we have to notify the public when we do certain things, when there's a subdivision, there's a planning project where we're going to change a municipal ordinance. We didn't change any law when we reverted to this new, we basically made a policy, and that doesn't have to mean, some people ask, why didn't I know about it when you were talking about it? Because we didn't have to notify you for a policy change. So we have extended the notification and the change. We didn't implement it last winter. We could have potentially stopped plowing and grading as soon as we changed the policy, and we didn't. So we wanted people to learn about it. You know, we sent the postcard as notification. Every meeting, people have been here. Norma comes all the time. This is like her 5th time. She came up, I said, well, we know who you are, but we hear you, but your solution seems to be, maybe I'm hearing it wrong, I want what we've always gotten, but don't worry about those other people. But I'm going to ask you, when they all come and say, you're now plowing Teal, you're now plowing wherever else, what do we say to them? Then what's the answer? So I asked that question, quite honestly, someone spoke to me privately, and I said, what's the solution? And hold on, Norma. And the person told me, they said, well, life isn't fair. And so like Patty talks about equity, and it's not right. When we can do right by the community, we need to do that. Some people were benefiting, and other people were paying out of pocket. So I don't know. I would challenge everyone to ask their neighbors who live on public roads, where I live on a public road. So how they feel about you getting something and another group not. And then finally, I'm just going to say, you can always come here, and we are listening to you. If there was a solution, I've said it 3 times, come with a solution. But to me, saying that we're not going to, we just want what we got, and that we don't care, life isn't fair, let those other hundreds of homeowners pay on their own, that doesn't feel right to me. So I'm open to any ideas, but that's where we're at.
Mr. Beasley. Mr. Beasley's been waiting.
Yeah.
And we're not going to do conversation back and forth from the audience. Mr. Beasley.
Good evening, Doral Beasley. On new business tonight, you're going to be, I'm assuming you're going to vote on whether or not to submit the authorization to the state for the $125 million bond. Okay. I'm here for one last time to say that there's a very great likelihood that the $125 million is not going to build the high school that we want. Mr. Conte from Jade, Studio Jade, has said in many of the school building committee meetings that if costs increase, cost of labor, materials, if they increase over time, which they seem to do continuously, that your only solution is to reduce or take things out of what your plans had now, originally had. We want to build we want a 750 person auditorium, which is great, which is larger than what the state of Rhode Island will allow for our student population for high school. This is a rhetorical question. Is the town council ready, if necessary, to have an additional referendum to add money to the project if we can't build what we want? Right now, the contingency out of that $125 million is the $6 million for the athletic complex on Curtis Corner Road. That's your contingency. So if that's the first thing that will come out of it. The state of Rhode Island, the school building authority, is only allowing $600 per square foot. The numbers that we've seen at these meetings is between $750 and $800 a square foot. What that means is the 52% that we think we're getting for the reimbursement from the school, from the state for the project is not really 52%. It's really only 3/4 of that. So it's really like 39%. But I'm hoping that you'll consider tabling it tonight, opening the discussion up for just maybe not even a month. Talk to the school district and see if you can add some money to it. $10 million. That way we won't have to take things out of this project. That's the last thing we want to do, is to take things out or to not have the material, the quality materials we really want in it. In the run-up to the referendum, we heard from the superintendent of schools and the school committee that level funding our schools was really a 4 to 5% decrease in funding. So they considered level funding a decrease in funding. They also said that our taxes wouldn't go up a penny if we level funded. So I'd like to know why the tax rate for the schools last year was $8.10, and this year it's $8.33. The entire increase, so the increase in our taxes went up 23 cents for the schools. It went down 10 cents for the municipal. I thought they weren't supposed to go up. How did they go up?
Thank you. Next.
Yeah, as I stated earlier in the meeting, I will have to leave in about 5 minutes. I just, so to anybody who hasn't spoken yet, if I leave before you speak, please feel free to reach out to me. Just jrose, southkingstownri.com. If you'd like to share your comments, I'd be happy to hear them.
Hi, my name is Ashley Jensen, Community Drive. This is my first time here, but I will say when I found out, back to the private roads, when I found out about that as well, I was completely shocked. I've been coming to South Kingstown for summers since 2006. Ever since COVID, I now work from home, so I have that ability to be here throughout the year as well. But something I wanted to add is when, Patricia, you had mentioned matter of equality. Well, the 60 miles of roads that we are talking about that weren't plowed before, did those people knowingly buy those houses that had an HOA set up for plowing, for maintenance, specifically that they bought those homes knowing that that was the case? I think that's something to look into when you say it's a matter of equality. As myself, a young person looking to buy a home, that's something I look into. What is it in terms of sewer, water, all of that? Those are decisions you make when you buy a house. But to have a property that you've owned for years and all of a sudden be told this is changing, I don't think that is fair. I don't know if anyone has a comment towards that. No? Okay. I can continue. Something else.
She might have gone to the restroom.
Okay. Okay.
Not Patricia. I'm Jess.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I can bring it up again, sorry. But, and then back to Norma was mentioning with the use of the roads. I myself am a marathon runner, so when I run around here, I purposely go up and down roads to stay off Route 1, go all over the place. But if a road has a sign that specifically says, private, keep out, any type of gating, I don't go down those roads. Community Drive does not have any signage in that case. I was sitting there, I looked out on the porch, numerous people go up and down, cars go up and down. It's welcome to everyone. So that's just another aspect that I think in looking at the equality of the different roads, yes, some private roads, there's differences amongst the private roads. So was that looked into as well? I don't, if there's any comments.
Yes, I'd just like to give a scope of some of this conversation, and since it was added to the agenda, it's appropriate to give it at this time. In full disclosure, I say this every time I bring this up, I live on a private road. I do pay my own way. Last year I paid $150 for snow removal on this private road, along with the other members each. I do not have an HOA as well.
And you have a well.
This town of South Kingston has 840 roads, 265 miles. Of that, 333 roads are private, about 80 miles of the 333 private roads. About 13 to 14 miles of the 80 roads are the ones that we're here discussing tonight. So that means there's about 66, 67 miles of roadway that is not maintained or plowed by the town of South Kingstown. When we first presented this to the town council asked to give a fiscal impact if we went all, so we picked up the other 67 miles of roadway. It was substantial. So there were a couple of considerations that I brought to the council's attention if they chose to go the entire 80 miles of private roads. I'll just go over those numbers that I gave you back in January, December when we first started talking about this. So first off, the town's liability and insurance would go up substantially because we're adding 67 more miles of roadway. Two, the number of vehicles that the town would need to maintain that extra 67 miles of roadway would be at least 3 large dump trucks and sanders and plows. That would be estimating $250,000 per truck. The number of staff that would need to be added full-time to plow and maintain those roads, to include grading and everything else that went along with it, is 6. So that means that's an extra with pay, benefits, and everything that goes along with a full-time employee, to include the pension liabilities and everything else. That's about $600,000 per year. So we estimate that, it's a rough estimate, that would be about $1 million a year to take on the other 67 roads. So what would be the fiscal impact to the taxpayers? So that means that the tax rate would go up 15 to 16 cents per $1,000 of valuation of your home. So if you use the average valuation of I believe it was $450,000 or near, around that. For the average home, you're talking $60, $80 per year for every taxpayer, even those that live on public roads. And if you use those where there's, the houses are substantially higher, you could be spending another $160, even if you live on a private road, a public road. But a question just came up that I'd like to address as well. We're looking at fairness and equity for everyone involved in this town. Some of these private roads were the wealthiest people in town, the 14 miles that we are maintaining. There's one road in particular that was 3,500 square feet, 3,500 linear feet of plowing and maintenance that we found. And that private road was being maintained by the town, even though there was a sign that said, "Do not enter private road." So there were other roads with tremendous valued homes that we were maintaining, of the roads and plowing them. So we took all that into effect. It's not, so that, I guess my time's up too, huh? So there were a lot of factors that were presented to the council that I just needed to reiterate for the council.
Thank you.
And may I just add to that? Okay. But just with that being said, you just mentioned for an average home, I think you said of $450,000, that's $60 to $80 a year in taxes increase. Or a home that is of greater value, you're obviously paying more taxes. I think everyone in this room would gladly pay another $60 to $80 in taxes or more than that. And then back to some of these private roads have the most expensive homes. So again, people are paying taxes on them. They're taxed at a higher rate. You're paying your fair share of taxes based on the houses. So just in hearing that answer alone, my mind's blown that wasn't put on to vote or an addendum. And this is my first time at a town council meeting. I was in a class officer for 4 years of high school, and I said to my parents, I'm going to run for office because just being here, it's awakened something in me. But that answer right there, why isn't that something that's being talked about or having a separate meeting? And then something else as a young person with social media, with the news, are they aware of all this? Like starting a social media campaign with hashtags, making people aware of what's happening here. Because I think a majority of people, I spoke with another friend who lives in South Kingstown, she had no idea. She has a 2-year-old, she couldn't get here tonight. She was infuriated. She's like, I had no idea about this. So I just think that there's other avenues, whether it is litigation or whether it is social media, but bringing it out so that more people are aware.
We do have a town website that is very active. It's a Facebook page. In addition to the town website, we do have a town Facebook page that's very active, and all of these things are posted.
It was written about
over and over again. It was in the newspaper, so it was advertised.
But was it posted in itself?
Yes.
Like literally a post just about this?
Yes.
Okay.
Several of them. Yeah.
I would say,
and I think all of us probably shared them on our town council Facebook pages as well. So it's out there on social media.
I think to your point about people in this room being willing to pay more taxes, I think that you're completely right. However, when you're sitting behind here, you have to think about the fact that we have 32,000 residents here, and we have to represent all of them. And so it really becomes a tremendous burden. And when somebody says, I don't know why the council would choose to open this hornet's nest, we opened it because it was brought to us. I don't think any one of us particularly enjoys having to be in this position, but I think when you're up here and you realize that there really is no easy solution, and you are responsible to so many people. So, and just this is my first time on the council, but seeing the way that taxpayers feel about paying more taxes in terms of like the schools and stuff, it's really a hard job to keep our taxes down to what we do. And our tax rate is actually quite low compared to a lot of other towns that are not nearly as nice as ours. So it's very complicated, and it's not fun to have to tell people what you think, but this is the only way that I can see that it's fair. So that's it.
so first of all, you should absolutely run for office. It's great, and I think it's important for all women to use their voices in ways that we don't always get to, so please run for anything. Second, when you talk about, even when Jim says it's $60 to $80 per person so that we can plow all the roads, you can imagine that someone would say, I would like you to have a limousine service for the seniors to get to the senior center, and we're willing to pay an extra $25. We can't do that because I always say this, one size fits all, we're all wearing 4X, right? Because it doesn't feel really good, but we've ballooned it too much. So we can't really do that. To me, saying $60 to $80, it isn't a lot of money for some people, but I've often talked about there are people that they would make a decision about how to spend that $60. And I use this as an example. If you're on a fixed income and your car needs to be inspected, that's about the price of the car inspection. If they worry about money, they might say, I'm going to forego that car inspection. And then they're driving down Main Street and their brakes go. And then people make decisions about how to spend their money, and they want to hold on to that and use it the correct way. So they could potentially be trading off. And there are people, when you run for office, you meet everybody. You meet all the community. And I always share this analogy that there was a woman I met who said to me, last year my roof leaked and I had to figure out a way to fix it. She was a retired teacher. And I sat there and I said in my head, that woman didn't get a new roof. She patched her roof. And so I hold that person since 2018 in my head because we're making decisions for the lady who's worried about the roof that leaked. And so we can't just say, oh, what's $60? Someone would come and say, we want something different for the schools. We just heard Doral Beasley say, make sure you have enough money for the schools because there are lots of people who would want us to do that. But we only have 700 kids at the high school, so we need to spend the appropriate amount of money for 700 students. So what Patty says is accurate. We're making a lot of decisions for the good of all and trying to weigh all that. So we come back and say, you have benefited, and we understand that. But now we want to make it right for the other 60 miles who would then come to us and say, I'm spending whatever, some homeowner association is charging me $1,000 and you're giving it to them for free. So then we would have a different set of people arguing for equity.
I think the difference is they have an HOA fee that they went into knowing that this is when you purchase a home, that's something you can look at and see.
I don't believe that every.
Oh yeah, not everyone. I'm not saying everyone,
right.
but I'm sure there are some of them. So if you looked at, of the 60 miles, how many went into this knowing that this was a service that was not provided, that they knowingly bought a home?
The town isn't involved when somebody buys a home on a private road.
Right.
That's not, the town of South Kingstown doesn't get involved in buyer and seller buying and selling property.
Mm-hmm.
If they buy on a private road, that's the distinction that was drawn. And we do have to move on.
Yep,
That's right.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
Do you live on a private road, sir?
I do not live on a private road.
Okay.
Chris Iredale, Hunt Avenue, in town, in Wakefield. I bought that property in 1974. I've paid taxes in this town for 49 years. I'd like to point out the flip side of this. People say that they get services from the town. In 1977, when the town installed sewers, I got handed a tax bill for 200-foot frontage, and then to get installed. And every year since, I pay $300 a year for sewer. I don't get free town water. I pay monthly to a private company for water. I didn't choose to live on a private road where I would have to drill a well or maintain a sewer system. That's their choice to live on a private road, to have to drill a well and maintain sewer. I didn't make that decision. I appreciate the services I get from the town, but they're not free. You pay for it. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Cheryl Swartz. I also live in Warden Pond Shores on Sebacia Trail. I just wanted to say that I'm a business owner in town, and I'm self-employed, and I see what a lot of business owners pay to get plowed out. I'm a bookkeeper accountant, so I work for different companies doing their bookkeeping. I see how much they pay. Are any of you familiar with how much people have to pay to get plowed out, a parking lot or a plat?
On a private road, and we do contribute to a fee to plow, so,
But
yeah.
how much is it?
I think we pay $750 a year, but that also includes the insurance and all the other things.
Well, all my clients pay by each snowstorm. They have to sign contracts with landscapers.
Also.
Right,
Yeah.
and it's expensive. It's, where I rent office space, it's $1,400 every time it snows, one time, that my landlord has to pay. For our plat, to get plowed out by a private contractor, it's probably gonna be, I estimate, $1,500 every time. That's a lot of money. Like, okay, I don't mind putting in my fair share, but there are gonna be people that aren't gonna contribute. Am I supposed to just stay home and not work? I'm self-employed. If I don't work, I don't make money. There are going to be people that might not be able to get out and go to their jobs. Now their employer's business is going to suffer because they don't have employees. COVID was bad enough. We don't need to have people absent from their jobs because they can't get out. Also, what about deliveries? You know, everyone has internet now and all that. How's Cox Communications or Verizon going to come in if there's a snowstorm and they have to fix the lines and we're not plowed out? Do we just wait a week to get our service back? What about fire and rescue and police? What if they can't get in because we're not plowed out? The town plows us out immediately after a storm. We're not going to get that same service with a contractor. We're going to be on a waiting list. And I frankly don't think there's enough contractors to plow all the private roads in town on a timely basis. Yeah, we'll get plowed out. It might be 2 days later. What are we supposed to do about getting to work? I mean, I'm self-employed. I can't miss 2 days of work just because my road isn't plowed. I think that's something that the town could definitely provide it at a cheaper rate than any contractor can. And the town is licensed and insured. Half of the contractors out there aren't. I don't want to hire some guy that's been drinking the night before to plow the road just so we get it plowed. What if he hits someone's house or hits someone's car? Like, that's a big liability. We're covered with that with the town. The town does a great job. I don't care if I have to pay more in taxes. It's worth it to me. We don't get anything from the town except the snow plowing. Now we're going to have nothing. I'll pay more in taxes because I want that done. I want it done by someone reliable, someone who's going to do a good job, someone who's going to show up and get it done right away. I don't want to have to wait for a private contractor on a waiting list, and then he says, oh, gee, sorry, I can't get there till tomorrow. Like, that's just not workable. So I really think that the town should look at providing the service. You know, I don't know how you'd work it out, but send us a bill, something. I think the town can do it cheaper than anybody else, and you can do it faster. You already have the staff. You might have to have more people, but you have a baseline staff. You have the equipment. You already know how to do the job. I think relying on people to get it done, you're not going to get everybody to do it. And, you know, we can't come up with the money. 10 people in an association can't come up with the money for 35 people that live there because they don't want to contribute. No one has thousands of dollars to spend every time it snows. And the landscapers want to get paid right away. They're not going to wait, and some of them want cash. Well, you can't get to the ATM either, so I just think it's something that the town should consider. You know, everyone can use more money. You'd get more money that way. You know, and $80 a year is nothing. I mean, we're going to have to come up with over $1,000 just in our plat to get someone to plow. So it's going to be a lot more than $80 a year for anyone on a private road to try and maintain it. So that's.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who hasn't already spoken? Sir, you've already spoken plenty.
Yeah.
You can always communicate with the council or the manager through email.
Yeah. If you could send it in an email,
Take it.
that'd be great. towncouncil@southkingstownri.com.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak on public comment? All right, if not, we'll move on to new business, item 9A. Resolution authorizing an award to Peterson's Oil Service, 75 Crescent Street, Worcester, Mass. For the purchase of gasoline and diesel fuel from July 2023 to August 2024, based on the Rhode Island Municipal Purchasing Agents Association's cooperative bid at the lowest daily rack prices published by Oil Price Information Services, plus the increment of .17 per gallon for gasoline and diesel fuel for 1 year period, and to further extend for 1 year renewal options upon approval by the Rhode Island Municipal Purchasing Agents Association, as further described in the memorandum from Finance Director to the Town Manager, dated July 6, and entitled Gas and Diesel Fuel Recommendation. Ryan.
Good evening. Before you this evening is a request. I'm going to speak to both at once because they are tied together, 9A and 9B. A request to rescind the current contract, which was awarded in October 2022 to Santa Buckley, and a request to award the contract to Peterson Oil. This was a request from the Highway Division. I should say, too, this contract is only running right now through August of this year, so another month. We had a few quality issues with the current vendor. We were made whole, and the town did not sustain any issues with it, but the department thought it best to go with the next lowest bid, and we will reevaluate when this bid expires next month.
Okay. Any questions for Brian?
No.
Can we-
Motion to approve item 9A.
Second.
What did you say?
And B.
He didn't speak about B.
Did you address B?
Yes, 9B is when we'll be reawarding the contract to
okay.
Peterson
I'm
Oil.
sorry. So, yeah, I can amend it. Sorry, I didn't hear you say that part. Motion to approve item 9A and B. I'm sorry.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you.
That passes unanimously. Thank you. Item 9C, a resolution authorizing the tax assessor to abate taxes in the total amount of $22,403.86, as shown on tax abatement request number 622. Jim?
It's Mark 9.
I don't think so.
Yes, Mr. Maron, I'm just pulling the report up.
Yep.
So these,
So if you look at the memo,
yeah, 9C is, these are related to real estate abatements. And I spoke to Mr. Capuano, who is our tax assessor. The vast majority of these abatements were elderly residents who filed late, and as well as veterans and so forth. So they were given the benefit of the doubt, and those taxes were abated. I know it's a large number, but the vast majority, like I said, are elderly.
motion to approve item 9C.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just have to continue to do our best to promote the elderly tax abatement.
Yes.
Get the word out and let people know it's available.
Yes.
Yep.
If there's no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
No opposed, that motion passes unanimously. Item 9D, a resolution authorizing the tax assessor to abate taxes in the total amount of $7,585.06, as shown on tax abatement request number 623. I think during the work session, you said this one is on tangible.
Yes, sir. It's tangible assets. And I sat once again with the tax assessor, Mr. Capuano. The number that stuck out to me, there was one in particular that was $7,317. And I asked, why was that one abated? Quite honestly, it was, both of these were abated, the 267 and the 7,300, because it crossed in the mail. There was this, the list of disposable assets was not processed at the, by the time it was processed prior to us receiving the list. So, on both of these. So really, there would be filing errors by the town. And it was not the fault of the people who paid these taxes. So that's the reason they were abated.
Motion to approve item 9D. Thank you.
Second?
Any discussion?
Nope.
Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 That motion carries unanimously. Item 9E. We did it A and B
Bind it
together.
Remember, I said I'm sorry.
Item 9E, a resolution authorizing the submission of the following question to the Office of the Secretary of State for inclusion on the November 7, 2023 local election ballot. Construction and equipping of new high school athletic facility and other school facilities, $125 million bonds and notes pursuant to Chapter 25/26, Local Acts of 2023. And what follows is the exact question for the ballot. I do want to mention one comment that was made earlier this evening by a member of the public. This ballot question for $125 million, we have no discretion at this point in changing that figure. Representative McEntee introduced the legislation in order to get it on the ballot at $125 million. The legislature passed it, which is a requirement for us to have the referendum on the ballot. She and I both testified to the House Finance Committee, and it was approved by the legislature. So this is basically just up or down. And obviously, we've been dealing with this for quite some time. Both the school committee and this council have supported putting a referendum to the voters in the amount of $125 million.
So that's fair, but we voted 5-0 for the 125, so there wasn't any, someone's asking for us to change it. We wanted
We
it
all
to be 125.
unanimously approved
We
that.
We support 125. I mean,
And the information that we've gotten from the consultants indicates that we are right on task and on target. So I don't see any need to even.
and there would be no way to amend it.
Exactly, so it's.
But also to present it as the council asked for enabling legislation. Representative McEntee submitted on our behalf. She did our ask for us, she didn't
Right.
go rogue.
No.
Don't want to present it. Came from the five of us.
Right.
So I think motion to approve
Motion.
9E.
And second, motion to approve 9E. I don't.
said that, yeah.
She said that.
Do you want to add anything, Brian?
The only thing I would add is that this has been prepared and approved by the town's bond council in conjunction with the town's plan on this project.
Thank you.
Any further discussion with the council?
No.
Okay, all those in favor of item 9E as stated?
Aye.
Aye.
And
That passes.
although they're not here, I'm sure the other two missing members would be absolutely voting aye.
Absolutely, yeah.
Safe bet.
Yes.
Thank you, Brian. Item 10, Town Manager's Report.
Mr. Maron, recently the Rhode Island General Assembly passed a law that has become very controversial. It's affected this town. It's specifically for shoreline communities regarding the mean high tide line and the 10 feet addition of beach access. So it's a beach access law that allows people to access the beach 10 feet above the mean high tide line. And it is vague, the law. In some respects, it's vague, the enforcement of it. But, so tonight, I asked the town solicitor to just give us a legal update on that law and how it affects, the residents that live on the ocean. And also, I invited the police chief to briefly state on the challenges that law enforcement's having with the property owners and the people seeking additional beach access. So I'll turn it over to the solicitor first to go over the legalities of this law.
So what you know about the law, of course, is everything you've been reading in the newspaper, which has generally been pretty accurate. Where the challenge is coming from in enforcement of the law, as the chief will tell you about, is that the law references something called a recognizable high tide line. The issue becomes, well, how do we figure out where that line is? Better than the old definition, the mean high tide line, for sure. It's an improvement. But there's still an issue because if there is no seaweed or no shell line or stone line or debris line to say, that's where you measure the 10 feet landward from the ocean, what the law says is you look at where the wet mark is. So that's kind of, so in the balance, when you're out there trying to enforce that, it's like anything else. Our police department has to use their good judgment. We're not going to be in the business of telling people they're 1 foot over the line. We're not in the business of telling property owners that that person's 6 inches into your blanket area. We just can't do that. Now, the law is very clear about the fact that people can't go on private property and use their facilities, their blankets, their chairs, their umbrellas, et cetera, et cetera. It's basically an area that you can traverse and sit, whatever, but it's not going to be an easy law to enforce, in particular because on any given day that line is going to drift and change, whatever. My feeling is that over time, this is just all going to settle out, and it's probably not going to be an issue. Right now, you're also aware that private property owners are bringing lawsuits saying that this law is an unconstitutional takings. Well, until those lawsuits are resolved, the law is the law, and that's what's in place.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief?
Good evening. So I just wanted to give a little background and some update as far as from the police department since this law has come into effect. We've had some calls regarding it, and mainly I think as the solicitor indicated, it's more clarification. The law is specific. It's given us more guidelines than what was in place before to say, that wet mark or the seaweed mark plus 10 feet of passage. But I think now it's starting to work it out. We have been in contact with the CRMC. There's a few questions that have come up about signage that's in place, already existing structures that may be in place. And CRMC and DEM are probably the appropriate agencies when those questions come up. So I just wanted to make, from the department, make myself available if you had any questions. And, we've fielded some phone calls and emails from residents in the community and have done, I think, a good job of informing them of where we stand and how we're going to move forward with this.
I do have a question about the reference to CRMC and DEM. Is that with respect to signage?
No, I mean, the law itself specifically wrote in that CRMC, the DEM, and the AGs would be there to educate, spread awareness of what the changes would be.
To that, the statute specifically says CRMC in collaboration with DEM and the Attorney General shall determine appropriate language and signage details for use at shoreline locations. I'm sure they haven't promulgated those rules yet, but they're going to have to.
Thank you. I don't know about other members of the council, but I've already been contacted by some of the advocates. And frankly, the two of you have just answered the question from my mind, because the advocates are going to be coming to the council looking for us to make a sign. And if the statute says it's CRMC and DEM, then our best course is to
And the
stay out of
Attorney
it.
General, And the Attorney General.
Yeah, and the Attorney General. Thank you. Anything from the council?
For the clarification.
Thanks, Chief.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it.
And Mike. Anything else, Jim?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Item 11, communications. A letter dated July 18, 2023, from Laura Lee Costello, Executive Director, South Kingstown Housing Authority, requesting a resolution in support of the agency's application to Rhode Island Housing for grant funding and a loan for affordable housing development projects. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, how are you? Thank you for having me.
Thank you for waiting all this time.
I'm earning my big title tonight. Woo. So I am here to respectfully request that the council and the town administration either put together a brief resolution or a simple letter of support, if you will, for a funding application. We have requested a total of $300,000 from Rhode Island Housing. It's to support our master planning as we try to move forward with redevelopment and modernizing or improving the current conditions. So the application will, if approved, it will assist with costs in engineering, legal fees, repositioning consultants, architectural designs and such. And I'm happy to detail that more. But if you're also feeling it's a long night, I'm happy to email that info to you. And I don't know what's easier. I had asked about a resolution at the behest of one of our board members, but a letter of support is equally good. And equally appreciated. We have received support from the Rhode Island state senators and representatives.
Great.
So this is something just to add to the application, grant application process to.
Just to kind of fortify it, I did find out today that there were only 3 applications. So, and there's a good amount of money available. So I feel optimistic, but I don't want to jinx it. I say more support is better if it's not an inconvenience or if you're not opposed, which.
So what's the best thing to do, Jim? Should we do a resolution at the next meeting, or Laura Leland sounds like she needs it quickly, so what's the fastest way to help her move it along?
I think both.
Okay.
Could write a letter and a resolution. So,
Can I ask, when does this due?
So it's.
Strengthens their grant.
We applied, the deadline, pardon me, it was supposed to be in on the 1st, and we're overachievers, so we got it in on the 30th. Look at us. So we'll just to be
first of August.
July, it was due. So it would really just to be to fortify our application.
I think the council could just vote tonight to approve a resolution in support of. That will be the resolution, and I'm sure Susan can.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
Can I
I'm
make a
sorry.
motion to write a letter of support and resolution to support the South Kingstown Housing Authority in support of their application to Rhode Island Housing for grant funding?
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. Hope you get it.
Yay, thank
Passes
you.
unanimously.
Let us know.
Thank you very much. Yeah,
us
let
know.
us know.
Excellent, thank you so much.
You got it.
11B, a letter dated July 18, 2023, from Susan Walsh, tendering her resignation from the Zoning Board of Review effective August 1st. She's not.
I move that we accept Susan Walsh's letter of resignation and direct the town clerk to thank her for her service. I also want to note that Susan complimented the town staff, and I know we constantly praise the hard work that the town staff do, but her letter mentions the good work and organization of Jamie Gorman, and I can't remember the other name right now, in their organization and skills. I don't know who that is. Sorry, I don't want to look. Oh,
did.
okay. She did.
Amy-
She
Amy-
did. So
and
we
she
should say
also-
that. Let me get them.
She also complimented her fellow members of the board,
Yes.
too.
So it's nice to hear someone who enjoys the work that the staff and the town solicitor do. And so I just want to put that out there, and people don't like everything we do, but there are others.
Second?
Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 That passes unanimously. 11C, communication from Peter Zawiza, President Matunic Point Beach Club, Mary Ann Madden, and Susan Day Sigmund, requesting the council to reconsider its decision to discontinue maintenance of private roads, convene a study commission, and stay the implementation of the town's decision.
Are they here?
Don't think so.
Okay. I move that we place item 11C on file.
Second.
Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes unanimously.
So it was Jessica Spence as well, so just so you know, if she was noted as well.
Item 12, what's the council's pleasure with respect to appointments? We had Leslie Perini tonight.
Well, I wasn't here, but I wasn't here. Is it okay if I vote on an appointment if I didn't attend the interview? Okay. Okay. I move that,
Make a motion to approve, no?
it's a resolution.
Make a resolution to approve the nomination of Leslie
Perini,
Perini to the
School Board of Trustees.
school board, the school funds,
Trustees Board, yeah.
yes,
Trustees of South Kingstown School
Second.
Funds.
the trustees of South Kingstown School Funds.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That passes unanimously.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Are we
Meeting is
leave-
adjourned.
Are we leaving the computers for updates, or do you have an idea? Should we leave them? I'll take mine then.